Hello everybody, welcome to What to Tech. Today I have Jim from Cyberstone. Jim is a pen tester over at Cyberstone. I'm really excited about today's interview. Say hi to everybody, Jim.
Hey everybody.
So Jim, I know you do this every day, day in and day out. Are there areas that you consistently see holes that you can tell people like these are the big buckets that you should not do?
Sure. I'd say one of the most consistent holes or gaps that I see in folks' security when it comes to businesses, there's an over-reliance on just their patch management programs.
I see.
I'll often see that we have everything relatively locked down as far as keeping everything up to date inside their environment, but then that reliance makes them kind of fall short on putting attention on configurations, on how are they implementing technologies. And so those end up getting exploited in some of the harder environments.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. So a lot of the business owners I talk to and CIOs at companies are all talking about vuln scans, scan the network for known vulnerabilities. Why would I do a vuln scan and also a pen test? Like, what's the difference?
So two totally separate engagements, two totally separate goals. Vulnerability assessment, all we're really looking at is what vulnerabilities that are known to the world do we see in the environment. So we're looking at things that have already been discovered. It's easy to kind of pick those up on any environment that you see, any company, and you're presenting that to the customer, presenting that to the organization and giving them some recommendations on how to fix things. A penetration test, you're actually going in and verifying that those vulnerabilities actually exist, but you're also finding things that a vulnerability assessment doesn't pick up on. So those configuration issues that I was talking about, how technology is implemented, a lot of that's going to fall on the staff or the folks that are actually putting things together. Maybe they didn't set something up quite right, or maybe even they left something with some default settings that are pretty quick and easy to do a quick search on the internet and take advantage of. That's where you see a lot of things like our man-in-the-middle attacks, where we're getting in between different computers and people communicating and causing a ruckus on that.
Yep, that makes sense.
Vuln scan's not going to pick that up.
Aren't there some phrases that they use to describe pen tests so that people can understand the difference?
Yep, yeah, so a common way to describe the difference on a vulnerability assessment, think of your business as a house. We're going to be casing the house, looking at any windows that are cracked. Maybe you've got a door that's propped open. We'll report that to you. On a pen test, I'm actually going to open up that door and see if there's another door behind it. I'm going to start walking around the house. I'm going to start looking for goods. I'm going to be collecting any sensitive info you have. And that's where we start really seeing what kind of damage could be done.
Got it. Kicking down that door. Okay, so I talk to business owners all the time, and a lot of them have done they've done penetration tests. They have a backup and disaster recovery, multi-factor authentication, and what are things that people might not know? What are the things that they should consider?
Well, it's funny you brought up backups. Interesting thing with backups, if you're not testing them, how valid are they? And when you're doing your backups, if you've already had a breach or somebody's been in your network, a common technique is to create back doors that you're hoping you go undetected long enough that the backups actually back up their access and they become persistent. So it's actually not that uncommon to see a ransomware event occur. You have all your remediations done, people have restored from backup too quickly without validating things, and now all of a sudden that same threat actor, they have their access restored as well.
Oh my God, crazy. It's interesting about the backup because I'm in front of business owners all the time and I ask them about backup, and I would say 90% of the time is yeah, we're backing up.
And how secure are your backups? It's really common for me during a penetration test that I see all of your critical systems and your servers, sure you're backing those up, but the place you're backing those up to, I have access to. And so where I would have had a harder time breaking into your environment, if I can access those backups, I can then pull those down and start digging through things.
Sure. Yeah. The point you made earlier about not testing, I usually ask them, when was the last time you tested? I'm met with these like blank stares. So how about trends? What trends are you seeing? What are the new things that these criminals are doing?
So there's a lot of fear of missing out when it comes to things like cryptocurrencies and new technologies and
FOMO.
yeah, FOMO. So a
Okay.
big trend that I'm seeing is we're seeing threat actors that are targeting people that are adopting this technology without really knowing how to secure things. So folks will flaunt on social media how much money they have, how involved they are in all these
Sure.
cryptocurrencies and new technologies, and they're putting a big target on themselves. And a threat actor out there, it's going to be a lot easier for them to rob somebody of their digital assets than it is to physically walk into a bank and rob
Right.
it. So the bar of entry is much lower. So you're instead of painting a target on your back like a bank for only the hardened criminals,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they're willing to physically do something.
Right.
You got a much bigger audience
Right.
that's staring at you.
Yep. Okay. Any other trends?
Yep. So some other trends that we're seeing is when it comes to phishing attempts and to reaching out to people trying to get that access in their company's environments. I think too many people are focused on just email. You know, we hear it all day, every day. Have your user awareness training, look at your emails, train your staff on how to identify something that's suspicious.
Yep.
It's not just email though. You know, Microsoft Teams, that's one of my favorite phishing vectors. If your organization is allowing people from outside companies to reach them, then what I might do is I might take a look at one of your employees, see who they're communicating with, find some kind of reason that that person would reach out to them, pretend to be them, and then send them a message in Microsoft Teams that makes sense to them and get them to click on a link. And depending on what kind of controls you have in the environment, when they click on that link, they might be sending you their Windows password.
Interesting. Nobody ever talks about Teams. I've never even thought of the idea of an attack via Teams. Okay, we're gonna wrap up here. So we talked to a lot of people who have limited budgets. If you were gonna make some quick recommendations that things should do, can you just list off whatever 5 to 10 recommendations that you would say, like, here's some things you can do to close some of these doors?
Yep. First thing I would start with, multi-factor authentication on anything that you can possibly throw it on. That's going to be my number one recommendation. And train your staff on its use. Don't let them get by with just clicking on accepting a push notification from their multi-factor authentication. That's actually happened. I fished people. The company had an MSP. They set up MFA. So they ended up getting a push notification on their phone. Hey, somebody's trying to access something. And they went ahead and said, okay, sure. And then I got in. So train your staff too. So user awareness training, multi-factor authentication.
Okay.
And don't rely on just a single control. You got to layer your defenses. You know, assume that things failed. When it comes to those internal attacks, when somebody's already got a foothold, go with the assumption that you've already been breached, and then work from there. So it's good to harden the perimeter, lock everything down that's facing the internet, but protect the inside of your environment with this mentality that you've already been breached. What can we do to detect those people, mitigate, and then prevent them from accessing additional areas?
Right. Makes sense. All right, man. Thanks for coming today.
You're welcome.